Get him away from the stage. The room went quiet, not completely, just enough. Enough for the people nearest the front row to stop talking. Enough for 3 event coordinators to look up from their tablets. Enough for the man holding the toolbox to hear every word. Sophia Bennett stood beside the main stage of the Harbor Crest Convention Center in Boston. The annual Aegis Technologies Investor Summit would begin in less than 2 hours. 200 guests were expected, several government officials, a handful of reporters. A room full of people whose signatures could move billions of dollars. Sophia was the CEO. At 50 years old, she had built Aegis into one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity companies in America. She rarely repeated herself. So when she pointed toward the maintenance worker near the stage entrance, nobody asked for clarification. Her security director, Owen Mercer, followed her gaze. Gray work jacket, toolbox, work boots. A maintenance badge hanging from a lanyard, nothing unusual. He's checking the emergency power system, Owen said. Sophia folded her arms. Near my access corridor. It's part of the building. Sophia looked at the man again. The maintenance worker was standing beside an electrical panel. He wasn't looking at her. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was looking at the room, slowly, methodically. Almost like he was counting something. Sophia frowned. I paid for a secure venue. Nobody spoke. She tilted her head slightly. And their solution is a maintenance man guarding the stage. A few people laughed, not loudly, just enough. Enough to make the moment land. The man finally looked up. His badge read, Jack Turner, late 50s, at temples, weathered face, calm eyes. The kind of face people stop noticing after 10 seconds. Sophie expected embarrassment, maybe an apology, maybe an explanation. Instead, Jack simply said, the backup systems will be ready before noon. Then he returned to the electrical panel. That was all. Something about the response irritated her. Not because it was disrespectful, because it wasn't. He hadn't defended himself, hadn't reacted, hadn't given her anything. Sophia turned away. Let's continue. The room moved on. But Owen glanced back once. Only once. Something felt strange. He couldn't explain why. By 11:30, the convention center was fully operational. Catering teams moved through the hall. Reporters tested microphones. Investors arrived in groups. Outside, rain tapped softly against the glass walls overlooking Boston Harbor. Jack Turner sat alone in a maintenance corridor. His lunch sat unopened beside him. Turkey sandwich, apple, bottle of water. The same lunch he brought every day. A worn black notebook rested on his knee. He opened it, wrote 3 words, blue tie, west entrance, then another note, server badge. Wrong shoes. He closed the notebook. A photograph slipped from between the pages. A woman stood beside a lake, late 40s, dark hair, bright smile, holding a fishing rod. Jack stared at the picture for a second, then slid it back inside. The radio on his belt crackled. Jack? Yeah, it was Carl, building operations supervisor. You still worried about that catering guy? Jack looked toward the corridor. Maybe, Carl sighed. Security already checked everybody. I know. You got anything solid? No. Then let it go. Jack didn't answer, because he couldn't. 3 times that morning he had seen the same catering employee standing in places where he had no reason to stand. Near the loading dock, near the service elevator, near the stage, watching, always watching, not working, watching. Most people wouldn't notice. Jack noticed. That used to be his job a long time ago, before the divorce, before the hospital, before everything became quieter. Carl spoke again. You still there? Yeah, go eat lunch. The line went dead. Jack looked down at the sandwich, still untouched. His stomach wasn't hungry, his instincts were. At 12:15, the hall began filling rapidly. The energy changed. Big events always had a certain feeling. Like a storm gathering pressure, the noise increased, the movement increased. But patterns became easier to see. And one pattern stood out, the catering employee, blue tie, dark hair, mid-30s. He had changed locations 6 times, but never performed a single task. Jack watched from across the room. The man drifted closer to the stage, then closer again, then stopped. Jack felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, recognition. The same feeling he had experienced years ago. The feeling that arrived before trouble showed its face. He reached for his radio. Carl, static. Then go ahead. I need security to verify one employee. A pause. Again. Carl exhaled. They won't like it. I know. Another pulse, then description. Jack never got the chance to answer. Across the room, Sophia Bennett stepped onto the stage. Final microphone check, final lighting check, final rehearsal. The catering employee turned toward her and smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a nervous smile, something else, something colder. Jack felt every muscle in his body tighten. The man took one step forward, then another. Jack set down the radio and started walking, not running, because the fastest way to create panic was to panic first. The stage was 40 feet away, 35, 30. The catering employee's hand disappeared beneath his jacket. 25. Jack kept moving. 20. The room was still talking, still laughing, still preparing for the presentation. Nobody saw it. Nobody except him. 15 feet. The man looked up. Their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, neither moved. Then the man's expression changed, and Jack knew he had been right. The entire time, the man's hand came out of his jacket, not with a badge, not with a phone, with a blade, white ceramic. Short, sharp, almost invisible beneath the stage lights. Everything happened at once, and somehow too slowly. A woman near the front row screamed. A reporter dropped his camera. Someone shouted. Most people froze. Jack didn't. He was already moving. The attacker lunged toward the stage, toward Sophia, toward the stairs leading directly to her position. Owen reacted immediately. Years of training took over. He sprinted forward, fast, aggressive, professional. But he made one mistake. He saw two men moving at the same time, the attacker and Jack. For a fraction of a second, Owen couldn't tell which one was which. That fraction almost cost him. He collided with Jack from the side, hard. The impact echoed across the room. Several people gasped. The attacker saw the opening. His eyes lit up. One more step. That was all he needed. He never got it. Jack absorbed Owen's momentum. Not by fighting it, by flowing with it. His body turned. His right foot shifted. His left hand caught Owen's wrist, a small movement, almost invisible. Suddenly, Owen wasn't moving where he intended anymore. His balance vanished. Not completely, just enough. Enough to send him 2 feet offline. Enough to clear the attack path. Owen felt it instantly. Something was wrong, very wrong. No maintenance worker should be able to do that. Not to him, not that easily. The realization hit him 1 second before Jack reached the attacker. The blade came up. Jack's hand came down. A crack, not bone. The sound of nerves and tendons losing the argument. The knife fell. The attacker tried to recover. Too late. Jack stepped inside his reach. One elbow, one twist, one controlled movement. The man hit the carpet, face first. The entire fight lasted less than 4 seconds. Silence followed, heavy silence. The kind that arrives when reality changes direction. The attacker groaned. His arm pinned behind his back. Jack knelt beside him, calm, breathing normally, like a man fixing a loose pipe. Not a man stopping an assassination attempt. Owen stared. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His pulse hammered in his ears. But that wasn't what bothered him. The technique bothered him. Because he recognized pieces of it, not from experience, from stories. Stories told inside training rooms. Stories told by instructors who rarely used names. There were people in the protection industry everyone knew. And then there were people nobody talked about publicly. The second group was more dangerous, much more. Jack slowly looked up. Call the police. His voice was steady, no adrenaline, no excitement. Nothing, just information. Like he was reporting a broken elevator. The room finally woke up. Phones appeared. Security officers rushed forward. People started talking, then yelling, then calling someone else. Sophia remained on the stage, motionless. The microphone still hung in her hand. For the first time all day, she looked uncertain. Not frightened, uncertain. The distinction mattered. Because Sophia Bennett wasn't used to being wrong. Yet the evidence sat directly below her. A man she had publicly humiliated. A man who had just saved her life. And a security director who looked more shocked than anyone else in the room. Police arrived 12 minutes later. The attacker was identified within an hour. Fake credentials, forged employment records. A rented apartment under another name. Months of preparation, weeks of surveillance. The target had always been Sophia. Not the company, not the investors, her. The conference hall was closed, the summit postponed. Most guests left before sunset. Only a few people remained: police, building management, Sophia, Owen, and Jack. A detective sat across from him. How did you know? Jack looked at the cold coffee sitting beside his toolbox. "I didn't." The detective frowned. "You seem pretty certain. I noticed patterns." "What kind of patterns?" Jack thought about it. "The wrong shoes." The detective blinked. "The shoes?" "He claimed to be catering staff." Jack shrugged. "Catering workers stand for 12 hours. The detective waited. "Those shoes were new." Silence. "Then anything else?" Jack nodded. He watched the exits. Another note in the detective's notebook. He watched security. Another note. He never watched people. The detective stopped writing. "Meaning?" Jack leaned back slightly. "When someone enters a room for the first time, they look at people." A pause. "When someone enters a room with a plan, they look at obstacles." The detectives stared at him, then slowly closed the notebook. Owen stared too, because that answer didn't come from experience. It came from somewhere deeper. Somewhere professional, somewhere expensive, somewhere very far away from building maintenance. Jack stood. The interview was over. He picked up his toolbox. The same scratch toolbox Sophia had laughed at earlier. The same toolbox everyone had ignored. He started toward the exit, then Sophia spoke. "Mr. Turner." Jack stopped. The room became quiet again. Not because anyone ordered it. Because everyone wanted to hear what happened next. Sophia stepped down from the stage, slowly, carefully, almost as if crossing a bridge she wasn't certain would hold. She stopped a few feet away. The distance felt strangely familiar. The same distance from earlier. Except now everything had changed. "When did you first notice him?" Jack looked at her. "This morning." Sophia frowned. "What time?" 6:23. The answer hit harder than she expected, because she had arrived nearly 5 hours later. "You watched him all day?" "I watched what he did." Silence. The sentence landed hard. Sophia understood exactly what it meant, and exactly what it said about her. For the first time that day, she had no response, no argument, no correction, no executive answer, only a growing question. Who exactly was Jack Turner? And why was a man like that repairing electrical panels inside a convention center? Sophia didn't sleep much that night. The city lights shimmered across the harbor outside her hotel window. Her laptop sat open on the desk, unread emails, board messages, crisis reports, media requests. None of them held her attention. Her mind kept returning to one image, a maintenance worker, a scratched toolbox, a calm voice, and 4 seconds that should have been impossible. Across town, Owen Mercer wasn't sleeping either. His apartment was quiet, too quiet. A half-finished protein shake sat on the kitchen counter. His television played silently in the background. He wasn't watching it. He sat at the dining table, a laptop in front of him, searching, digging, cross-checking. Something about Jack Turner refused to fit. The movements, the awareness, the timing. The way he read the room. The way he moved Owen without hurting him. That bothered him most. Anyone can get lucky. Almost nobody can stay gentle under pressure. Owen knew the difference. At 1:12 a.m. he found the first crack. Jack Turner wasn't Jack Turner, not entirely. The maintenance records were real. The payroll records were real. The employment history was real. But 8 years of his life seemed almost invisible. There were no social media accounts, no professional profiles, no interviews, no photographs, almost nothing. People don't disappear accidentally, not anymore. Owen leaned back and kept digging. At 1:47 a.m. he found a Daniel Turner. The same date of birth, the same photograph, 20 years younger, different haircut, different life. Owen froze, because he recognized the company immediately. Sentinel Executive Group. His stomach tightened. Every protection specialist in America knew that name. Most never met anyone from Sentinel. They didn't advertise. They didn't recruit publicly. They didn't appear on television. They protected people who couldn't afford mistakes, federal witnesses, corporate whistleblowers, international negotiators, people whose names stayed out of newspapers. The best people rarely became famous. Sentinel was full of those people. Owen opened another file, then another, and another. The deeper he went, the quieter the apartment felt. 3 promotions, multiple commendations, lead protection specialist, 12 years, then suddenly, nothing. No explanation, no retirement announcement, no award ceremony, just gone. Like someone had turned off a light. At 2:06 a.m., Owen found a court filing, partially sealed, medical references, Liability reviews, witness statements. One phrase appeared repeatedly: civilian injury. Owen sat perfectly still. A bad feeling settled into his chest. The same feeling he experienced before a threat assessment went wrong. He opened another document, then another. Slowly the story emerged, not completely. Just enough. A charity event, 8 years earlier, an active threat, successful intervention, protected client unharmed, operation successful, officially, but not completely. Someone else had been caught inside the chaos. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Someone Daniel Turner loved, his wife, Emily. The hospital records were sealed. But the recovery timeline wasn't. 7 surgeries, 18 months of rehabilitation. 3 years later. Owen closed the laptop. The apartment suddenly felt smaller. He stared at the dark screen. And for the first time all day, he understood something. Jack hadn't left the profession because he failed. He left because he succeeded and still lost everything. The realization hit harder than he expected. The next morning, Sophia arrived at the convention center early, very early. The summit had been rescheduled, security doubled, police presence increased. Everything looked safer, everything felt different. She found Owen standing near the main conference hall, coffee in hand, eyes tired. "You look terrible." Owen gave a small smile. "So do you." Sophia folded her arms. "Did you find anything?" Owen hesitated. That alone got her attention. Owen never hesitated. "Not about work, not about facts, not about people. What is it?" He handed her a folder. Sophia opened it. "Read the first page, then the second, then the third." The silence between them stretched, long, heavy, uncomfortable. Finally she looked up. "You're sure?" Owen nodded. "As sure as I can be." Sophia stared at the documents. Lead protection specialist, Sentinel Executive Group, multiple federal contracts, international assignments, threat interdiction commendations. A career most people in security would spend a lifetime chasing. She looked at the photograph. A younger version of Jack, sharper, stronger, confident. The eyes were the same, everything else felt different. Sophia lowered the folder, slowly. "He never said anything, no. He never corrected me, no." She looked away, toward the empty stage, toward the place where she had laughed at him, toward the place where everyone else followed her lead. Something uncomfortable settled in her chest, not embarrassment, something deeper, because embarrassment fades quickly, regret doesn't. A few minutes later, building operations manager Carl Reynolds entered the hall. Sophia called him over. "Carl!" He stopped, mourning. She held up the folder. "How long have you known?" Carl's expression changed instantly. Not surprise, recognition. "You found out." Sophia nodded. Carl exhaled slowly. "Long time. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Carl looked around the empty room, then laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, because the answer was obvious. "He never wanted us to." Sophia said nothing. Carl continued. "When he got hired here, people asked questions." A pause. He answered exactly enough. Another pause. Then he went back to work. Sophia looked toward the maintenance corridors. "He could have been anything." Carl smiled. "He was." Silence again. Carl shifted his coffee cup. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "Most people here think Jack is quiet because he's shy." Sophia looked at him. Carl shook his head. "No." A small smile appeared. "The truth is." Carl glanced toward the hallway. He already lived a life most people only watch in movies. The words lingered. And for the first time, Sophia Bennett felt genuinely small. Not because Jack had saved her. Not because of his resume. Not because of his reputation. Because she finally understood what she had really seen that morning. Not a maintenance worker. Not a former security specialist. Not a hero. Just a tired man carrying a private grief. A man who no longer needed strangers to know his value, and somehow, that made him far more impressive than any title she had ever held. Meanwhile, 3 floors below them, Jack Turner knelt beside an old electrical cabinet. A flashlight rested on the floor. His toolbox sat open. The same notebook lay beside it. He was replacing a damaged relay switch, a simple job, a quiet job. Exactly the kind he preferred. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Jack glanced at the screen, then froze, only for a second. The message contained 5 words. 5 words he hadn't seen in almost 4 years. "Hi Jack, it's Emily." And suddenly, the biggest story in his life was no longer the one upstairs. Jack stared at the message. For a moment, the electrical cabinet disappeared, the convention center disappeared, the noise, the wires. The relay switch in his hand, everything faded, only 5 words remained. "Hi Jack, it's Emily." He read them again, then again. 4 years. 4 years without a message, without a phone call, without hearing her voice. The last time they spoke, they sat in a lawyer's office. 2 cups of untouched coffee between them, neither angry, neither cruel, just tired, terribly tired. The kind of tired that settles into bones. The kind that doesn't leave. Jack lowered himself onto an old maintenance crate. His hands suddenly felt older. The screen remained lit. Another message appeared. "Are you busy?" A strange smile touched the corner of his mouth. Not happiness, not yet, just surprise, the honest kind. He typed 3 words, "a little." Then stopped, deleted them, typed again. Not really. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, "Can we talk?" Jack looked down at the photograph inside his notebook. Emily stood beside the lake, holding that fishing rod, laughing at something he couldn't remember anymore. Funny. He remembered the photograph perfectly, but not the joke. Time worked like that. The phone rang. Jack stared at the screen, his chest tightened. Then he answered, "Hello." Silence, breathing, then her voice, soft, familiar, older. "Hi." Jack closed his eyes. For 1 second he was 30 years younger, 1 second only. Then reality returned. "Hi, Emily." Neither spoke, not immediately, because some conversations need room to arrive. Finally she laughed quietly. "You still hate talking on the phone. You still notice." A pause, then another. And somehow neither felt uncomfortable, just careful. Emily spoke first. "I saw the news." Jack leaned back against the wall. "I figured. The reporter didn't mention your name." "No. I knew it was you anyway." Another pause, then, "You always notice things." Jack smiled slightly. "So did you." Silence again, gentler this time. Emily took a breath. "I almost didn't call." Jack didn't answer. He knew that feeling. She continued. "I've started and deleted that message maybe 50 times. A small laugh, maybe more." Jack looked at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above him. "I probably would have done the same." That earned another laugh. A real one. The first real laugh either of them had heard in years. Upstairs, the rescheduled summit was about to begin. Guests returned, investors returned, reporters returned, life continued. Sophia Bennett stood alone behind the stage curtain, watching the audience take their seats, watching the room settle. Her speech sat on a tablet beside her. She had rewritten it 3 times, still didn't like it, because every version sounded polished. And polished wasn't what she wanted, for once. The event coordinator approached. 30 seconds. Sophia nodded. The coordinator left. She looked toward the stage entrance, toward the hallway where she had first seen Jack. Then she walked out. The applause arrived immediately. Professional applause. Expected applause. The kind CEOs hear every week. Today it sounded different. Sophia stepped behind the podium, looked across the room, then ignored her prepared speech completely. "I was supposed to talk about growth today." The audience quieted. "I was supposed to talk about projections." A few smiles. Sophia continued. "But I'd rather talk about something else." Now everyone was listening. "Yesterday I walked into this building believing I could evaluate people quickly." A pause. "Believing I could understand someone after a glance." Another pause. "I was wrong." The room became completely still. Sophia never admitted mistakes publicly. Almost nobody in the audience had ever seen it happen. "I judged a man by his job title." She let the words sit. "I judged a man by a uniform silence." "I judged a man without knowing a single thing about him. No names, no explanations, no details. But those who knew understood. And those who didn't could still feel the weight." Sophia looked across the audience, slowly, carefully. "There are people who carry greatness quietly." Her voice softened. "They don't announce it. They don't advertise it. They don't need recognition." A pause. "And sometimes the strongest person in a room is the one nobody notices." No applause followed, not immediately, because some truths need a second to land. Then the room stood, not all at once, row by row, people rising slowly. A standing ovation. Sophia looked down briefly. Not because she was emotional, because she was. And she didn't trust herself to show it. 3 floors below, Jack never heard a word. He was still sitting beside the electrical cabinet, still talking to Emily. The summit, the investors, the applause, none of it mattered. not compared to this. They talked for almost an hour about ordinary things, her garden, his apartment, the old dog that had finally passed away, the fishing cabin, the lake, the memories that no longer hurt quite as much. Eventually, Emily became quiet. Jack waited. Then she spoke. "You know." "What?" "I don't think I called because of the news." Jack listened. The fluorescent light hummed above them. Somewhere far away, a cart rolled across concrete. Emily exhaled slowly. "I think I called because enough time finally passed." Jack looked down at the photograph, the worn edges, the faded colors. The life they once had. A life neither of them had forgotten. He swallowed, then asked the question that had been waiting between them for years. "Are you happy?" Silence. Long silence. Finally, "Some days. Honest." "Very honest." Jack nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Me too." Emily laughed softly. "Still honest, trying." Another pause, then, "I'm visiting Boston next month." Jack didn't speak, not immediately. His heart had started doing something strange, something hopeful, something dangerous. Emily continued. "If you want." She started again. "If you'd like to have coffee." Jack stared at the photograph, then at the old toolbox beside him, then at the notebook, the one he carried every day, the one that still contained receipts from hospital cafeterias, parking tickets from rehabilitation visits, tiny pieces of a life he never completely put down. He smiled. A real smile this time, the first in years. "I'd like that." Neither spoke for a moment, neither needed to. Outside, Boston Harbor reflected the afternoon sunlight. Inside the convention center, people applauded a speech. Cameras flashed, investors shook hands, business continued. But none of those things would become the most important part of the day. Years earlier, Jack Turner had saved strangers for a living, protected executives, protected witnesses, protected people whose names appeared in headlines. Then one terrible day he couldn't protect the person who mattered most. And after that he spent years believing some losses stayed lost forever. Maybe some do, but not all of them. Jack ended the call, carefully placed the phone in his pocket, then picked up his screwdriver. The same old screwdriver with the chipped blue handle. The one Emily bought him 22 years ago. The relay switch still needed replacing. The cabinet still needed fixing. Life, strangely enough, kept moving, one small repair at a time. He tightened the final screw, closed the panel, and for the first time in many years, the future felt slightly larger than the past.